News Talk 98.9, the roar of Memphis. Tool Talk Radio with Joe and Alan.
Welcome to Tool Talk Radio. I'm Joe Thorderson with Thor's Hammer, Carpentry and Wood Turning.
I'm Alan Gilbert, darkhookmedia.com.
And I'm Maximilian with a happy belated but ever relevant National Wicker Day.
Wicker Day. What are we
All
talking?
right.
Oh, furniture.
We're getting textile here.
Okay.
Yeah.
Not only wicker, but it's also National Hemp Day.
Hemp Day. Well, I mean, that's used in every,
A
I mean,
lot
it
of
makes
rope. That's a lot of rope and cordage, as they love to call it.
Okay,
Yes.
gotcha. All right.
Both of which have a rich history.
All right. I'm sure we'll hear about that later. And I don't know, sitting down on wicker furniture isn't a good look if you're wearing shorts or something. Let's just put it that way.
Well,
It's good to have a cushion.
It depends on if the kids are short a tic-tac-toe board or not.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So, all right, well, that's fine, Max. Happy Wicker Day. I know we got a lot of wicker furniture out there, and maybe you've got happy wicker furniture memories. So, if you, all right, well, that's a pretty good one. Hey, go over to Facebook and go to @Tool Talk Radio and check out the posts we've made over there. In in keeping with our water is now our friend. We've always, for look how long we've been, saying water is the enemy, Alan. Well, the last great moments in building history we talked about the Memphis Aquifer.
Did you all
Right.
finally sign like the Aqua Treaty or something between the water people?
Yeah. Okay, Max, you always confuse me. So
Well, Joe got a new roof, so he's less worried about it now.
right. And so in that vein, in our water is our friend series, Alan is gonna spearhead this conversation. We're gonna talk about modern sewers, literally the
yes.
bedrock of civilization. Without it, what do we got?
No, what do we got? You don't want to know.
Yeah.
So we're going to get to gutter talk?
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
exactly. We're going to
Easily.
take it into the gutter. So also, we've got a tool. We have one of the most fundamental tool tales of all time, but and I'm not going to tease it, but let's see. We also, last week we never got to our. Oh, by the way, I guess we should say a big thank you to everybody that stopped by the booth over at the home show last week.
Oh,
Alan, you were there all
absolutely.
weekend, handing out the swag, schmoozing with listeners and everything. How did that go? Any noteworthy stories or? Yeah.
Well, just a massive shout out to the very large number of people that came by the booth, say they listened to the show, got a magnet. We liked meeting all of you. We loved hearing the stories. We however, I will add an addendum to that. It was like, you see us at the show. Feel free to go ahead and text us in some questions while you don't see us live.
Yeah.
Get involved in the show with us. But it was fantastic. Joe, honestly, it was hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people by the booth.
Really? Because
Yes.
I was only there a little bit on Saturday, but it was a good crowd, and they always take good care of us over there. And
Oh, it was a
I know
wonderful
Jay
time.
Hill had a good time over there, so we were set up right next to his booth. So I think a lot of people. I'm curious who won that $500 gift card. I gotta ask
It
him
wasn't
about that.
me.
But yeah, that wouldn't be a good look. So okay, but yeah, thanks to everybody, and we look forward to some more live. We'll be doing more live events this year, but
Oh, yes.
we'll announce
yes.
those in the weeks ahead. So also, Alan, here getting back to our roster here, do I have a gas leak? That's a pretty good question to know if you
Oh, my gosh.
if you're in the house, but maybe you do, maybe you don't.
The-
We had an active situation this week at my daughter's house, so we'll share that.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
I think that's what triggered this conversation. We got a lot of other stuff. We trust us, folks. We got quite a bit. Alan's Week in Review. We've got. Well, I'm not going to tease anymore. I also have a suggested viewing that I want to get to, but let's just dive in, you guys. Before we get to any of those things. All right, Alan. You and I'm holding it up, and of course, if you go to our Facebook page, you'll see what I'm holding up. But tell people what it is.
Well, you have either a tie down or a come along, depending upon which big box store you go to.
Never heard that term, but yeah.
What, a come along?
Yeah, it
Yeah,
sounds.
that's just, as you tighten these things up, whatever it is you're trying to, snug up into the truck or keep from blowing out,
right.
it comes along. So,
I have to believe we've had ancient versions of this. I have to believe back when they were building the pyramids, they had things like this, only maybe bigger.
the ratchet pull is actually one of mankind's older tools. It's basically a variation of the pulley.
Right. So if you want to envision this, folks, now this is a portable one. This is small. So it's an 8-foot rope. On one end of the rope, we have a hook, a decent enough hook. It's really just the perfect size to hook onto the roof of if you've got like a SUV or you've got a roof rack, hook it on one side. If you've got those boards that you want to strap to the roof. And then on the other side, it's got a hook, and a pulley. And the pulley has hear that?
Has a
It's
little
got the
ratchet.
ratcheting system, and then all you do is you pull it tight. You hook it onto the other end of the roof rack, and then you give it a nice little to tighten it. And then when it's time to release it, there's a nice little release button. Couldn't be easier. I mean, I think this thing cost me $6 or something.
Right.
But it's one of those lifesavers when you need it, though, because
it is that third or fourth or fifth set of hands when you absolutely need one.
right. Now, you can do some fun things with it, too, because I was looking at this, Alan, and I was thinking, okay, this is also good for lifting things or keeping things vertical while you put them in place.
Yes.
I'm picturing something maybe sort of heavy, or maybe you hook it to the top of your Christmas tree, put a hook in the ceiling, and winch it up or something. But
especially if you've got pets.
Yeah.
Having a plant hook that does the little mount
right
through the ceiling, and you can kind of adjust where you want the tree to hang. That keeps you from killing the cat.
Yeah.
Just really, because you cannot bring a tree into the house and expect your critters to leave it alone.
Right.
They're just not going to. So you might as well adapt to it.
Yeah, and I will say this. I do have a way of storing this, because do yourself a favor, because when you want it, you don't want to spend 20 minutes untangling it. What I do is I just took it. I have a little 1x3 board, or whatever, and I just wrap it around that, and then click it together, and then when I need it, I just literally undo it, and it's ready to go in 10 seconds. So, but it's a pretty fundamental and basic tool, but it works great. And
well, I'm going to throw in a bizarre use for those, since you actually have the smaller one right there. I'm going to tell people, if you're transporting virtually anything in the trunk of the car, these are absolutely a lifesaver of getting stuff to grandma's house. So you've put things in the trunk of the car, you're trying to get them there. Cinching them together so they don't just roll around and bump into each other and slide back and forth makes a huge difference. And I'm up to and including Sunday dinner.
See, I was wondering, I'm like, because when you say that, I'm thinking of bringing like casserole dishes and things like that. Are you literally saying you would use?
I am literally
an 8-foot
saying
tie down for that?
I have used tie downs to put the cardboard on the bottom, a piece of cardboard on the top, and a tie down wraparound to make it a more solid unit, so that things don't slosh, wiggle, and move. All right, it's an extra 30 seconds, but it keeps you from having to clean turkey gravy up out of the trunk.
That's see, I don't think because you deal with food a lot more than I do. I mean, I'm not transporting food on a regular basis, so I don't really give it much thought, but it probably is a good idea. I mean,
well, it's also a great way of keeping the dog food from falling over, or the bird seed, or a variety of other things that you just don't want rolling around the trunk, bumping into everything else.
And you know what else is fun about this, as long as we're beating this into the ground? It's another thing. This is another I would call introductory tool to get your kids off their phones and off the screen. I was just thinking, if I had one of these back in the days when we had like tree houses and stuff, think of how cool it would be to be able to lift things up to the second level and transport things and
build your own Addams Family cottage,
right?
With basically a dumbwaiter.
I would say though, I don't think I would trust it as like I don't think I would trust putting my weight on it or something.
No, it's not designed for that.
No, these are not they're not the be all and end all, but they're perfect for that extra set of hands, like we said. So the 8-foot tie down is our must have item of the week. So let's see. we had an incident. I'll tease this. How's that?
Okay.
So we had my daughter is selling her house. By the way, if you want to buy it, it's a pretty nice little
You wanna
house.
buy
It's
a
a
house?
perfect
Joe has
introductory
one
house.
for you.
Get in touch with me. It's a little 3-bedroom house, totally updated. She renovated. But anyway, they're showing the house. They're doing these open houses, and one of the realtors contacted her realtor. Because my daughter lives in Albuquerque now, so she's having to do everything remotely. And she contacted us. She was all panicked because she said one of the realtors that was showing the house during the open house said it smelled like there was a gas leak, and they went into the area. This is a little 1-story house. I mean, it's on a slab, and said they opened the door to the little closet where the gas heater was, and they said, "We think you have a gas leak in here." My daughter called me all, a little panicked, and what do we do? And we don't want to burn the house down and everything. And so other people may be in this situation. And so when we come back, we're going to discuss the conundrum. Do you have a gas leak, or is everything cool? How's that for a tease?
Awesome.
You're listening to Tool Talk Radio. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back.
Tool Talk Radio with Joe and Alan.
You have paid the price for your lack of vision.
News Talk 98.9, the roar of Memphis.
And welcome back to Tool Talk Radio. I'm Joe Thorderson with Thor's Hammer, Carpentry and Wood Turning, here with my buddy Alan Gilbreth from darkoakmedia.com and our pal Max over there behind the glass. And in a minute, boy, I really teased it, but we'll get back to our discussion of do I have a gas leak? No. Do you have a gas leak?
It can go either way.
You guys
Joe.
are in the studio. I guess that would be up to you to decide. But before we get to that, though, off the air, we were having a heated debate, Alan and I, because today, Max tells us that today is National Wicker Day. And Belated. Okay, it's a belated. This week was National Wicker Day and National Hemp Day. And I was just basically bemoaning, I guess that's the word, saying, I've never had a wicker chair that didn't give me a problem. Never had a wicker chair that didn't have one of the legs collapse and also that put the back of my legs to sleep when you're
Right.
and you were talking about this one type of chair that we've seen we've seen these everywhere. Like if you watch Miami Vice, you probably saw a bunch of these, or the Golden Girls. But what was this chair called? Because
What, Papasan chairs?
It's like round at the bottom and it does this big peacock thing where it flares out.
Well, there's the Papasan, there's the double Papasan, and a triple Papasan.
Sounds like an ice skating move.
A Papasan chair looks like a satellite dish. A double Papasan looks like a small dugout canoe, and a triple Papasan looks like we're floating down to go see Tarzan.
Yeah.
They're made out of rattan and wicker. And a lot just depends on you, your body style, and your lifestyle. But I had Papasan chairs for years and years and years of, just, now they do take up a lot of room.
That's the thing. They have a huge footprint. The seating area is pretty small when it tapers down.
Well, if you have a enclosed patio kind of thing, and you're looking for larger furniture, things to take up a little bit of room, these are actually quite nice.
That's my other beef, because
I don't think I'd have
them,
one in a tiny little 1-bedroom apartment.
That's the other thing, Alan, because they're like a wind sail. These things will blow over on your patio unless you have them weighed down pretty good. So
Yep, you do have to tie them down to something.
They leave marks on the back of your leg. I guess it's just unless you have a really good cushion, I don't know.
Oh,
if you're out there
that's
and you're
the secret.
Yeah, if you're a fan of wicker and you want to send me hate mail, go ahead. But I'd love to hear your thoughts about that too, because but I've never had luck with wicker. And then there's always those one or two things that come undone, and it makes the whole chair look like garbage because they break off, or the little wicker strands.
They're pretty
something.
easy to repair.
And if you paint them, they get all gooped up. They get all
Goopy
these
and
drips
sticky,
and
and they
everything.
attract bugs. But
Yeah,
for
they're hard to clean.
But
I
see-
hate them.
but
Boy,
see-
I really hate wicker.
yeah, but see, you're from Chicago. I'm from South Houston. And down there, it's a light, airy piece of furniture that lets air flow around you because it's 90% humidity, and 100 degrees.
I guess
Okay.
that's why it's good that it's a belated day so that Joe could get his frustration out.
Yeah.
He had
all right.
4 days to get his frustration out.
Well, now that you're telling me, I'm just reminded of how much I hate wicker.
Really
so-
don't like the wicker. It's not for everybody, and it is definitely for more tropical climates where you need better airflow.
Well, it's
You're from Chicago.
Okay.
Well, that's why, with kind of just get a little bit of an aside here, that's why wicker was first used in places like ancient Egypt. Or,
So you get a breeze through the chair.
Yes.
but not only that, too, but wicker has a durability because it was used for shields
What?
in battle.
I would not trust a. Well,
No, part of the shield, so to say.
Okay. Well, on second thought, though, okay, I can sort of get behind that because I seem to remember watching some sort of documentary, and it was all about. It's not necessarily about having something that is big and heavy. That like if somebody's throwing a spear at you or something, if you have a lot of things that will either catch the spear
Yeah.
or whatever, it doesn't necessarily have to just make the spear bounce off of it or
Right.
something.
It's like
So-
skins, using
Yeah.
like leather.
Even some of the Kevlar vests they were showing, because you don't want to wear something that you can't move in, and so there needs to be a layer of flexibility in there.
The idea is to slow something down.
Right. Yeah.
So,
So that actually makes sense.
when you look at the history of armor, you'll discover that, a hard exterior with a softer center works better than just armor alone.
Right.
For the furniture style, getting a nice breeze through the chairs so you're not just sitting there sweating is a wonderful, wonderful thing. But again, you don't see a lot of wicker coming out of Norway, because it was cold. You wanted furs and heavy duty stuff.
Yeah.
You do see wicker in the tropics.
I would say you probably would have less reason to be adamant about the other holiday, which is hemp, because it's equally old, but it's also got so way much more versatility to it, because nowadays it's used for like CBD oil, insulation, biofuels, and even off the air we were talking about how Henry Ford, as much as we hate Ford, actually made a hemp car.
No one used the word hate Ford.
Yeah.
Well, once again, any good cordage, and that's basically what we're talking about here.
Cordage.
Of hemp is a amazingly fibrous thing. It has a cousin that's a little more famous,
Oh yeah, of
but
course.
we'll tiptoe around that and go to it's a fast growing oxygen producing CO2 trapping of useful plant. Hemp, has been used throughout the centuries for really good cordage, really good rope, especially in the marine. There wasn't a sailing vessel for hundreds of years that did not use hemp rope.
Like the Vikings.
There you
Exactly.
go. Okay. All right.
So, it is amazing whether something is vilified or is astounded for its virtues, depending upon where you are in history and its uses.
Okay. All
Like
right.
cocaine with Sherlock Holmes.
Yeah, well, before they knew anything. Okay, let's move on, Max. But okay, well, so if you love or hate wicker or hemp, let us know. Get in touch and share your stories. Or if you really hate wicker as much as I do. So, anyway, hey, okay. So before the break, we were talking about the conundrum of wondering maybe, man, if you have a gas leak in your home. And so I mentioned that my daughter, she's living in Albuquerque. So basically the house is empty. We go and check on it all the time. And then she's got a realtor that's showing her showing the house, doing these open houses. And one of the realtors contacted her and said, I think you have a gas leak in this house. I opened the closet that has your hot water heater in it, and I smelled gas. Mm-hmm. Well, of course, that's going to send alarm bells off. She doesn't want her house burning down or anything. And then I talked to you because I said, I'm going to call Alan Gilbreth. He would know about this. And you said something that really made a lot of sense. And then I went over and checked it for myself, and sure enough, you were right. But tell me,
Well.
I'm just teeing it up for you. But
Okay.
what was this realtor experiencing, you think?
Okay, well, what the realtor experienced is what I'm going to call basically the Price is Right syndrome.
Talk to me.
All right, this is where people are
I
showing
didn't think you'd go that
things
route. Yeah.
and they whip stuff open.
Okay.
You see what I mean? You know, it's kind
Yeah.
of like when they're showing you stuff on The Price is Right. They open the door and they sweep their arms grandly and they move things in a grand way. And I could see a realtor going, and by the way, your heater is right here. Turn the handle, whip the door open, and say, your heater is right here.
You know what else about that? It makes total sense because this hot water heater was replaced like 2 years ago. So this is new.
Brand new.
Everything on there is shiny.
Shiny.
New. So we have a brand new
They're gonna
hot
show
water
it
heater.
off.
They whip the door open.
And of course, you create a vacuum.
Boom. I
And
think
now
right.
you're going to pull air and vapors from wherever they were inside of that little enclosed area. You're now going to waft them out the door for just a second or two. Now,
But
because
it's right at nose level too,
Yep.
because that hot water heater is about 5 feet tall.
Yep.
And you're
Yep, you're yanking that door open, and hydrogen sulfide gas, which is what we add to natural gas to give it odor. Think of it as rotten egg smell.
Yeah,
That's the
it
hydrogen
protects you,
sulfide.
so you know that you have a gas leak.
That's
so.
how you know you have a gas leak. Of if you walked into the house and got a whiff of bad eggs, that's a gas leak.
That's a different problem.
That
Yeah.
is a problem. That is when you start turning off utilities and opening doors.
Right.
And
Yep.
you certainly don't do anything that creates a spark.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
You know,
Don't strike a match so you can light the candle. And
don't think you need a cigarette halfway through the house at this point.
Yeah.
Of the biggest thing here is we do add hydrogen sulfide, so you do know it's there.
Yeah, there's a few other important things as long as we're talking about
Oh, yes.
gas leak. This is a deadly serious thing. Luckily, it wasn't a problem for us, but we're going to continue when we come back here on Tool Talk Radio.
Tool Talk Radio with Joe and Alan. News Talk 98.9, The Roar of Memphis.
And welcome back to Tool Talk Radio. I'm Joe Thorderson with Thor's Hammer, Carpentry and Wood Turning, here with my buddy Alan Gilbreth from darkoakmedia.com and our pal Max over there behind the glass. And if you're just tuning in, just to update you, we are celebrating a belated National Wicker Day and National Hemp Day. And I was just going on and on about how much I hate wicker. If you love wicker, by all means, call in and let us, plead your case. Let us know what's so great about it. But
It's just interesting the conversations that we have off the air that actually get more traction than our on-air stuff.
that's true. Yeah, we're gonna be. Yeah, we'll probably talk about some of the food references in a future show. But Alan, before the break, we are talking about the important situation and the important as a homeowner. The important question of, do I have a gas leak? And we were talking about a situation at my daughter's house, and it was really interesting because basically what happened was the realtor, they were showing the house. This house is for sale, so it's basically empty all day. She swooshed open the door to show off this brand new hot water heater that is part of this house, and she detected a whiff of gas, and you pointed out that it basically, when you do that, if you swoosh it open, you're creating a little vacuum, and the gas that's venting into the vent above the hot water tank is, instead of going up there, you just pulled it towards you. And so,
Yes.
but it's not, because it's vented correctly. Everything's brand new, everything's up to code. But that's a whole different situation than other gas leaks. So I feel like we should touch on those while we're on the subject, because.
Well, let's start with your air conditioner.
Okay.
Your air conditioner has a chemical in it that is both a liquid and a gas, depending upon if it's heating or cooling.
Okay.
And what that chemical is, as we have learned over the years from our dear buddy Larry Brown, that chemical has been Freon, it has been of propane mixes, it has been any number of chemical combinations, but its whole purpose in life is to change from a gas to a liquid and back and forth.
Right.
So that's the quickest place where our lives are dependent upon gases. If you have a gas stove, you are using some form of methane, propane, something in one of those carbon. It is a carbon-based gas that will react with oxygen in the presence of heat and burn.
Right.
So, I mean, that's the simplest way to
Well,
put it.
I got a question because
We're setting a controlled fire.
well, I guess what I'm wondering is, and I know you've got these detectors and things like that, but I remember specifically, I've gone into you remember when gas logs first started coming
Yes.
out? Okay, and it's like,
I'm that old.
yeah. Well, I mean, I guess I should say before when they started becoming really popular and everything.
Back in the 70s, yep.
Yeah, but I seem to remember even then there was sort of this whatever. I went into some brand new homes, and these are homes that were like less than a year old, and they had gas fireplaces, and you would walk by, and it was really unpleasant to me. I mean, it was a really strong smell but it wasn't the pure. It was like whatever. I guess because there's a pilot light going. But I
Correct.
thought it was almost dangerous, and they're like, "Oh no, it's fine" or something like that. But
Well-
I'm leery of any of that stuff. I don't want really a gas.
How is that not a historically terrible segment?
Well, that's what I'm wondering. To
Well,
me,
it's about to be because I'm about to make it worse.
yeah, because I wonder where you come in on the. I want just a regular fireplace myself. Okay, all right. Before I say that though, one quick thing: when I lived in San Diego, I had an apartment where you could walk in. It had a little fireplace. You flick a switch, and the fireplace came on. And it didn't give off a ton of heat. It was mostly just for ambiance.
Right.
I thought that thing was awesome, but I never smelled gas, and it might have even functioned differently. Like it might, I don't know if it even had a pilot light or.
I have no idea. I'd have to see it to know what you were
It
talking
was built
about.
in the 70s,
Yeah.
so it was pretty cheesy. It was supposed to be probably like the
It was probably
bachelor
a
pad
fake
thing
fire.
of.
Yeah, it was probably fake
No, it was
fire.
a real fire. It was,
It was
pretty
a real
cool.
fire?
Yeah,
Okay.
whatever. But
All right.
anyway, the
Well-
gas fireplace causes me concern sometimes.
All right. Well, let's go way back in time for just a brief second, and let's bring up the great and grand canary.
Oh, the poor
So-
canary.
Yeah, the poor canary. So, all right. So we're coal mining, and one of the byproducts of coal mining is gases that are being released from the very coal itself. And these can be gases like radon gas, which is radioactive decay. It could be CO2. It could be of a carbon-based gas like a methane or a propane type gas.
Sure.
Mostly methane. Methane is the natural version of this. And we even have huge sheets of something called methane hydrate on the ocean floor.
Yeah.
So,
who knows what you're digging into?
well, exactly. And the reason they had a canary in the coal mine was if gas that we could not smell, because I'm going to throw in natural gas by itself doesn't have a smell, of the canary was so much smaller than the human. If he kind of felt funny, he'd shut up.
So they just chirp all day, but
They're just singing to each
Okay.
other, having a good time. And when everybody felt a little woozy, they shut up, which if the humans were paying attention meant get out.
right.
You know,
yeah, you just hit
By
something.
the time you felt woozy, it was probably getting too late. So, welcome to our relationship with gas.
Yeah.
So now when we begin putting gas in the homes and we began selling you gas, we began adding hydrogen sulfide to it to let you know you can smell the gas.
So that rotten egg smell is actually added.
We add
and it's there
that.
for our safety.
That we
So,
add
yeah.
that. And I, as a, former chef and all those wonderful things, I love me a gas stove. They are amazing. They cook a certain way. They have there's a whole style to a
Seems
gas
like
stove.
chefs like gas. Like they want
Well, it's because you can turn it on and off instantly. You
Mm-hmm.
cannot, and I don't care. And I am a big fan of electric stoves, don't get me wrong, but there's absolutely no instant on and off on an electric stove other than moving the pot.
yeah.
You got to put the pot on the heat and take it off the heat. Today we have discovered that even just having the pilot light on is creating byproducts that are not exactly good for you,
Right.
which is why gas is becoming less and less and less prevalent in homes. And not your lifetime, Joe, but I'll look at Max and say in Max's lifetime, the extinction of the home gas range will probably happen.
I feel like it's gonna.
It's probably going to pass away.
yeah.
Now, my question is sort of related to gas in terms of how it burns versus standard fires, because I thought I'm correct in observing that a lot of gas lights have primarily blue flames. And so are there properties to the blue flames that are more deadly to us than standard orange flames?
No, actually, the orange flame is worse because
Really?
it's not properly mixed. A pretty blue flame on a gas appliance means that you're getting your gas to oxygen to air ratios correctly. When you're getting the big sloppy orange fire, that doesn't burn as clean, has a lot more byproduct, and also doesn't create as much heat.
Okay.
So that is why when you see somebody working on a propane torch,
Yeah.
getting it dialed in, they want that pretty blue flame.
Right. Okay.
So now when it comes to gas, also I'm going to throw in there are a lot of other things out there that will simulate gas. AKA, it's a rotten egg smelt, hydrogen sulfide. It can also come from decaying slime molds. So if you have
yeah.
a water problem, not a gas problem, but a water problem in a part of the house where if you smell gas in a part of the house where you don't have gas, you probably now have a water issue and a slime mold that is giving off a hydrogen sulfide type gas. And the funniest gas leak ever that I've ever had to investigate was the neighbor of a gentleman in his apartment kept smelling a gas leak, kept swearing it was a gas leak. And the gentleman that lived next door, however, enjoyed an Asian fruit known as the durian. And
I've heard of. I never heard of that fruit till I met you.
oh,
That,
wow. They sell it right across the street over here at the International Market, Joe. Of if you've ever had a whiff of like some really heinous Limburger cheese or something that's phenomenally stinky, that is pretty much how this fruit smells. And the poor neighbor swore they had a gas leak, and no, it was just food. It was just food. But, you know, it
They
is
were baking
always,
a little durian fruit pie.
oh, boy. Oof. But it is always best to never just blow it. Never just kind of think, oh, it'll go away. If you have a smell like that, you suspect gas,
Yeah.
you really need to have that checked out because I can think of several instances where there were external gas leaks. We found one not too far from Walnut Grove Road once upon a time.
Yeah.
And it was a gas leak at one of the junctions
Oh, there
under the
you go.
ground. And if the wind blew just right, you could get a whiff of it.
And just to wrap this up, can the average homeowner get one of your little gas detector things and just keep it in the house, or you know?
Oh, yeah, they carry all kinds of CO2 detectors, radon detectors, all that kind of stuff at your local big box store. Go down the aisle with the smoke detectors.
Yeah.
There's probably 15 different kinds of detectors down there.
Okay, sounds good. All right, well, we've covered that. Boy, we really covered that topic thoroughly. So, all right, well, let's shift gears, Max.
And now, Tool Tales with Tool Talk Radio.
Well, at the beginning of the show, I mentioned this is as fundamental and as basic as you can get, but I think this counts as a tool tale. So, what started the conversation was my daughter, who I'm very proud to say is beginning to work with tools. She's acquiring her own metalworking tools. She got paid. She did her first carpentry side job. She built a little trellis for growing some vines up the side of their house. She wanted to build it in a way where the vines aren't going to grow into the house. They're just going to go up the trellis. So as a result, though, Alan, unfortunately, she's borrowing a bunch of my tools, which I don't really like. But anyway, she said, I need to sand some stuff. And I said, well, shoot. I have my sander with me on the job site, and she was across town, so she didn't want to do that. She was in our garage, and I said, I do have a belt sander, though. And, well, you know all about belt sander. I said, now, I'm warning you, the belt sander is powerful. It'll take that wood off fast, and you got to keep moving with it and everything. And she said, so anyway, she goes, okay, got it. And I told her how to use it, whatever. And so she called me back, and she said, I hate this thing. She was not digging the belt sander at all. I said, well, what's going on? She goes, the wood's jumping around. It's wobbling. It's not doing the whole thing. I said, well, did you clamp the wood down? Well, no, I was holding it with one hand and I was holding the belt sander with the other. And I said, okay, you rookie, here's where we're going to go. So it just occurred to me. I said, look, it's a night and day. You have to clamp your wood, clamp the wood down. You have to secure the wood that you're working with. And this is true basically in a lot of realms. And I was just thinking, it's a pretty fundamental thing, because how often do we violate that rule on the job site? It's like, and so we're going to talk about what happens when you don't secure your wood down properly. And I got some funny anecdotes from my high school shop class as well. You're listening to Tool Talk Radio. We're going to take a quick break and we'll be right back.
Tool Talk Radio with Joe and Alan.
I got them a toaster. They called off the wedding and gave the toaster back to me. I tried to return the toaster to the store, and they said they no longer sold that kind of toaster. So now my house has got 2 toasters.
News Talk 98.9, the roar of Memphis.
The age-old conundrum. And welcome back to Tool Talk Radio, everybody. I'm Joe Thorderson with Thor's Hammer, Carpentry and Wood Turning, here with my buddy Alan Gilbreth from darkoakmedia.com and our pal Max over there behind the glass. And if you're just tuning in, we're in the middle of a discussion about properly clamping down your tools, or clamping down your work, or keeping your work in its place. And we'll get back to that in a second. Do we have a text, Max?
We do have a text.
Okay, what do they say?
Well, it's not that they said anything. They just had a picture of something.
Oh, okay. So what's the picture of?
All right, I'll slide over and take a look. Hang on.
Okay, so what do we got?
There we go. We have a vintage, very good looking and well maintained come along.
Okay, which I called a tie down. I guess, in fairness, when I didn't save the wrapper, so I forget what it's actually called, but I called it an 8-foot tie down. You're calling it a come along.
Well, yours is a little bit. Yours doesn't have the ratchet handle. The one we got in the picture over here has the ratchet handle, which is a true come along.
Right. Now I have one of those that's like the three. It's the heavy duty. This is like a 3,000 pound one. But so what's that? You say vintage. How old are we talking? You think so?
That's a good 20, 30 years old.
Does that count as vintage?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, around some of the tools, that's a tool that gets beat up and lost easily because something breaks a strap and your tool goes sailing off into a ditch or disappears down a highway.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, was that Danny sent that in?
It was Danny.
All right. Thanks,
the squirrel
Danny.
Person.
Oh, the squirrel. Yeah, Danny, I don't want to derail the conversation, but in the future, send us pictures of how you dealt with that squirrel problem on your soffit, because remember that thing was like a foot wide and that was a huge
he just replaced that
entrance,
soffit.
Hopefully he did. So all right, but getting back to, so I told you before the break that my daughter was bemoaning the fact that the belt sander was lousy. It didn't do a good job because she was holding the board with one hand and then trying to belt sand it, and it was wobbling and it was pushing and it wasn't doing what I'm like. Well, just clamp it down, get it secure, and hold it with 2 hands, and you'll be amazed. And sure enough, she did. But it got me thinking about how often, and I'll admit this on the air, how often I'm guilty of sometimes not totally securing the wood. You're in a hurry. You want to just chop that 2x10 board in half, and you grab your circular saw, and you have one end hanging off the sawhorses and the other, and you cut it. And for one thing, you don't get as clean of a cut, but a lot of times just taking that extra minute to clamp down the wood or keep the wood in its place is a pretty big deal. It's amazing. It's like night and day how much cleaner of a cut you get, and how much safer it is too.
Well, I've had a long-standing comment on pretty much every job site I've been on is, you know how you speed up? Slow down. There's never enough time to do it right, but there's always enough time to clean up the blood, reset the tool, go replace the window.
Right.
There's just so much where I've learned over the years where it's like, all right, if you didn't count to 3 before you started winching that up, I'm going to smack you.
Oh, there you go.
Well, why? Because look where you put your ropes. The thing's going to flip out of there. Oh, yeah, it is. Just take the extra second, look at this stuff. And especially with like a belt sander, either the sander's got to be bolted down or the item's got to be bolted down.
Yeah.
Because you're not going to control both.
And belt sanders are powerful when they're used right. I mean, like I said, if you put I'm not telling you to do this, but if you put like some 80 grit sandpaper on a belt, on a belt sander, you could literally belt sand your way through a 2x4. Like you could turn that 2x4 into a pile of sawdust.
Yeah.
That's how powerful those babies are. So, but it got me thinking too. It's not just that; it's also keeping everything in its where it's supposed to be, and basically respecting the tools. I was just thinking of wood shop when I was growing up. We had this kid, he was pushing a 4x8 sheet of plywood through the table saw. And now these are big table saws, as you know, Alan. And so a table saw, if you don't keep that wood straight and against the fence and in its place, and if you're not, you don't have a firm grip, well, he pushed it slightly sideways. It caught the blade and it kicked back, and it literally threw a 4x8 sheet of plywood into his stomach. So sent him backwards. I think he was okay. I don't know. I haven't seen if he had any problems, after that, but it was pretty bad. And, respecting the tool. We had one kid, my buddy John Clark, I'll throw him under the bus.
Okay.
He was using the wood. We had lathes back in high school. I don't know why they gave us all these dangerous tools, but he thought, well, I'm really in a hurry. I want to cut as much of this wood as I can. So he shoved the lathe knife into the wood, and he shoved it, which you don't do. You're supposed to take it off nice and gradually.
Yep.
It caught the thing and it flinged it across the room like somebody throwing a knife at the circus, and
Death shurkens. Yeah.
Didn't take anybody's eye out. But it's just, I don't know, man. It occurred to me, just securing your work is a big deal. It sounds fundamental, but you got to do it, man. So
Well, you learn to respect what you're doing.
yeah.
And this is the one thing I've run into on job sites many, many times is that mentality of, just bloody mindedly forging ahead. And it's like, no, stop.
Yeah.
Don't do that. Take a deep breath, reset, do everything. And, I hate to say have a checklist, but you really should have at least a mental checklist of, am I ready to do this?
Yeah.
Because a couple of weeks ago of my own story, we had to climb the, multi-purpose transformer ladder 18 feet in the air to install a light fixture in a stairwell on a sloped ceiling.
Oh, boy.
This was just...
You better give that some thought.
Recipe to die.
Yeah.
And, done properly, you get up there, you get it done, it looks fabulous. You don't have to go up there again for 20 years. But it was... everybody thought I was being extreme until they saw how high up that ladder I had to get.
Yeah, and you were the one going up there, so you better be. So, all right, well, speaking of things that Alan did, when we come back, too, we're going to find out what Alan did this week. But hour one of Tool Talk Radio is in the can, but stay tuned. We have hour two coming up.
News Talk 98.9, The Roar of Memphis. Tool Talk Radio with Joe and Alan.
And welcome back to Tool Talk Radio. I'm Joe Thorderson with Thor's Hammer, Carpentry and Wood Turning, here with my buddy Alan Gilbreth from darkoakmedia.com and our pal Max over there behind the glass. And in a minute, we're going to find out what Alan did this week. But I was just sitting here thinking about something that, the older you get, the more you really reflect and you think about basic fundamentals. And I was sitting there, Alan, thinking about, okay, when you go to work, this is a little free tip for you contractors out there, especially you young guys that think you're indestructible and you can just do whatever you want. You can lift those 100-pound bags of cement and do whatever you want. I was just thinking, more or less, if you're doing some contractor work, or if you're even just, building a fence in your backyard, take some time before you even get started to stretch.
Oh, yes.
Stretching. I mean, the more the older I get, the more my wife really has instilled in me the importance of stretching your muscles, because that's where you get into trouble.
Oh,
loosening
yes.
them up and everything. And I'm like, that's not a bad practice to do. It's like you'll save yourself a lot of injury down the road, I think, just to Do a little stretch routine before you go to work. What do you think?
I've done that since the early 80s.
Oh, well,
absolutely.
I'm late to the party.
Yeah,
so to
no,
say.
absolutely. The biggest thing is, are you? It just basically, it kind of comes down to this: are you mentally and physically in tune to go do this?
Yeah, exactly.
Because where you get hurt, honestly, where you get hurt is that moment of distraction or that moment of not being ready.
That kind of reminds me of when I'm at my dojo. One of my senseis said that the martial artists don't typically get injured while at class. It's doing something stupid.
Oh, we all do.
Like,
Max.
it's like when he's on the roof or whatever. All right, I pulled my back. I didn't pull my back or like break my arm when I was taking a break fall.
No, wait till you get older. Wait till you're our age. I mean, because all of us, I think, suffer with a little bit of lower back issues. And my lower back things happen when I'm like brushing my teeth and I lean the wrong way or something. And so there's nothing worse than hurting yourself and you don't even have a good story behind it. Like there's no bragging rights behind straining your back while you brushed your teeth. It's like,
I love watching all of the TV shows these days that are like, my trip through the jungle, or I live in northern Alaska or something, and they all of the old timers on these shows all have something in common. And that is slow down and know exactly where everything is before you do it. Because in a lot of these instances, there's no place to go. There's no backup.
yeah.
So you drop the nail gun and put a nail through your foot.
Yeah.
That's bad. It's just you're in Anchorage someplace out in the woods, and
Right.
It's up to you to get to medical help.
There
So
you go.
it's best not to put the nail through your foot.
This whole episode in general has just made me beg the question of how are we all not dead? It's like we have methane at the bottom of the ocean. We have canaries breathing in gases in the coal mines. It's just like, how are we just not dead?
And we live on this little thin crust of with tectonic plates that are moving
Beneath a
and shifting
volcanic maw.
beneath a paper thin atmosphere protecting us from the void of outer space
As we're hurling on a rock.
traveling on a spaceship orbiting through the galaxy at how many thousands of miles an hour. Yeah, pretty
Now you know
impressive.
Now you know why Mars is so interesting.
Yeah.
Because honestly, Earth is kind of inside the Goldilocks zone.
Right.
We're really close. Mm-hmm. And Mars is actually should be in a better position to be us. So that, when you start, that's why Mars is so interesting to us right now is what
Who
happened.
knows? Yeah.
Because, they found basically fossilized wave marks, and we know that there was water. We know that there is water.
Well,
But,
it looks like,
what
we
happened
know
to
there's
what
water
happened
on the
to
North and
gas?
South poles. There's ice.
Yeah,
There's,
happened? But what happened to the atmosphere? You know?
Right.
So, oof.
Anyway.
Yeah, you bring up big topics, but bringing them close to home. There is nothing wrong with being careful.
Yeah.
And
there you
not
go.
just going off the handle and going, oh, I got this, and grabbing it.
Right.
No. Take your time.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's shift. It was just an observation because I was sitting there stretching during the break. I'm like, no, not a bad thing to do
I feel
before
a little
the.
better now. So
All right. Well, let's shift gears, Max. So.
Oh, the humanity.
Hey, I appreciate you keeping the volume at a reasonable level too.
That
not
wasn't
deafening
intentional.
Everybody. No.
he just had your microphone down.
Well, it's that time of the show. We're going to find out what Alan did this week.
If you're
And
able to hear us still.
I have scant notes about that here. I just have mulch. Well, go ahead. I'm just going to let you lay it out for
all right,
everybody.
one is one of my favorite hacks in the entire world, and the fact that your lawnmower is the world's greatest mulcher.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, hopefully it is.
Well, we pay
take care of it.
lots and lots of money to spray our lawns, fertilize our lawns, and make our lawns look pretty. I'm that neighbor that, like, you either love me or hate me because my lawn's going to look good, but I'm not going to rake the leaves. It ain't happening.
Right.
It's not happening. Get over it.
That's what my mom does. Like she's of the opinion where she likes the idea of leaving the leaves because it lets nature do its work and like it lets nature have what it needs to, because if you do, you just kind of destroy what nature needs.
Now, that's a good point. In nature, nobody's raking the leaves.
Well, I'm going to flip the script on her just a little bit, and I'm going to add surface area decomposition. Because I'm going to take my lawnmower, and I'm going to get out there, and people think I'm crazy. I'm out there on a warm day in the middle of January or February, and you will find me mowing my lawn.
Now,
What I'm actually doing is I'm getting rid of the cold weather weeds that have a tendency to pop up. There are a few cold weather
sure.
weeds
I mean, we
that
get
grow
warm
out there.
weather in the middle. And
Yeah, they pop up. And the other thing I'm getting rid of is the accumulated leaves. But I'm grinding them up with the lawnmower and putting them back on top of the soil. So I am not paying for all that extra fertilizer that, a neighbor or two might be. So I'm just grinding it up and putting it back. And it keeps it nice and clean. And you would be surprised at the quantity and quality of leaves a lawnmower can make disappear.
Well, if you keep, that's another thing to keep your lawnmower in good shape and keep the blade sharp.
Yep.
Yeah. And probably go pretty slow as you're doing it, right?
Yeah, you just take your time. You're not hot in the middle of February when you're doing the lawn.
Now, Alan, do you think you triggered some landscape enthusiasts out there that their yard looks like a golf course and they think what you're doing is heresy? Or
Probably.
Okay.
But there's all different camps in this, but no one can deny free fertilizer. And ground up leaves, that's mulch. You just kind of get it back onto the yard. I just don't like wasting the leaves. And for some of my friends that lived in far more forested areas than I do, it is amazing how deep of the leaves a lawnmower can get rid of.
Now, I'm going to ask you a science question, and maybe this is unfair, and maybe it's just a cheap shot, but I'm curious about something. So the leaves, let's just suppose they start coming down in November. That's what they do out here. Okay, well, by early December, the leaves are all off the trees.
Maybe,
Okay, whatever. So is there, I'm thinking of like aged beef or aged wine or something. Is there an optimum amount of time to wait for your leaves? Like, in other words, I never mulch my leaves until early February or until Groundhog's Day.
Are you referencing the Charlie Brown? I don't have snow till January.
Well, I'm just wondering. I mean, if you're going to take this to the extreme, when do the leaves become their best, I guess, before you mulch them up?
I don't think it really matters. Once they're down, I'm just creating surface area, and I'm basically getting the big leaves off the grass. Just, basically.
Yeah.
Because the sooner you crunch it up and the sooner you make surface area, the sooner it decomposes faster.
Okay.
So I don't think there's a magic time. Generally, we usually, in the Mid-South, we get the cold weather going into December. January is generally when we're going to have our bad weather. Right around next week is when we have our bad weather for February. For some reason, it's always the middle of February.
It's
Valentine's
Day.
It always is. Valentine's Day is always rough weather in the Mid-South.
Yeah.
And after that, it really becomes a debate as to whether or not it's actually spring.
Yeah.
Because, we warm up pretty early down here. So I want to get the leaves ground up and crunched up. And this year, a couple of weeks ago, this past week was just convenient. The weather was nice. It was good. I could get out there. The leaves weren't blowing around too bad. So got them ground up, and, the yard looks pretty good.
Well, I'd be curious, too, because there's a little bit, the sensibilities are more varied these days. Like, I've seen yards that they are unapologetic about not cutting the grass often because they say they're helping the bees pollinate or something. And so some people like a free range lawn or something, or maybe people don't even have a lawnmower and they've got a couple of goats out back that take care of their yard
the
maintenance.
goats are an awesome idea. Yeah.
Who knows? But there's a little bit of there's more variety today. So
there is, and the idea is just,
do your thing.
Yeah, do your thing.
All right. Well, that's pretty good stuff, Alan, actually. So, when we come back in our great moments in building history, we're going to talk about something that is really fundamental to our existence, which is the modern sewer system.
Tool Talk Radio with Joe and Alan.
You've got paper and you've got paint. A deadly combination! Let me show you.
News Talk 98.9, The Roar. of Memphis.
And welcome back to Tool Talk Radio. I'm Joe Thorderson with Thor's Hammer, Carpentry and Wood Turning, here with my buddy Alan Gilbreth from darkoakmedia.com and our pal Max over there behind the glass. And in a minute, we're going to get to our great moments in building history. But before we do, let's talk about our good buddy Jay Hill with Big M Roofing and Remodeling. And he also said, Max, he wants new walk-up music, so you guys need to coordinate on that. So don't look at
I
me
guess
that
we'll just
way.
see.
Okay. But he's picking out all these expensive, whatever. We need royalty free, Jay. But anyway, he was set up at the home show next to us, Alan. Boy, he had some good swag. A lot of people dropping by his booth, and for good reason, because if you are interested in the exterior protection of your home, from roofing to gutters to siding to windows and specific interior remodeling, let's be careful. He doesn't want to do any kitchen remodeling, but everything else is fair game. If you want to rip out that wall, or if you want to add new, if you want to put a window in and do whatever, then he's the man for the job. But we always lean heavily into his exterior expertise because when it comes to roofing especially, he's always 5 stars with the Better Business Bureau. He's a GAF Master Elite installer, and what they install are roofing systems. These are not it's amazing the engineering and technology that goes into every bit of your roofing system, from the materials it's made out of to the size of the shingle to the the engineering of the ridge caps. Everything works together to make your roof work as efficiently as possible. And because of that, they offer lifetime transferable roofs on all of the roofing systems that they put in. Also, what sets Jay apart is the fact that he is a former insurance agent, which is hugely helpful because if you have a situation where there's some damage to your home, inside or out, and you're not sure what to do about it, well, that's what we pay homeowners insurance for. Jay should be the first person you call. He's going to come over. He's going to do a free consultation with you. He's going to look over the situation. And if you have a path forward, he can help you navigate the process, which is a huge advantage. It's basically like a free advocate on your behalf. And if the damage is covered, man, is that going to save you a lot of money. But also, Jay has great financing. He has 30 lenders at his disposal. So if you need to finance a project, that's not a problem. In fact, what he recommends is you apply, and you're probably going to get approved by a bunch of them, and then you pick the terms that work best for you, because every lender has their own terms. So, but we love the energy and the optimism that Jay Hill brings to every project. Don't overlook that, folks. That's a huge factor. And also, he has great installers, great technicians, and a really great crew that works with him, because Jay's created a really great business culture with Big M Roofing and Remodeling. And he always encourages you to get in touch with him directly. So call Jay at 901-484-5645 or go to bigmroofingandremodeling.com. All right, you guys, here we go.
And now, great moments in building history.
All right. Well, Alan, this is you suggested this, and I thought, man, what a great, actually, it's a fundamental topic. And so we're not talking about one structure. We're talking about an infrastructure, really.
I'm not talking about form. I'm talking about content.
There you go. That's right. Well, we're talking worldwide, because most civilized countries have adopted modern sewer. We're talking about the modern sewer system. And
we are a big part of that history.
Sure. Yeah.
Let's set the Wayback Machine for 1858, and let's jump the pond, and let's go to the Thames River in London. And there is actually, if you look it up in the history books, you can look up the Great Stink of 1858.
Okay.
And the Thames was so bad that it was thick and black and terrible and smelled bad, and Parliament's building was right there next to it.
So that's how you get something done with politicians. You run the sewage right in front of their headquarters.
Under their building.
Okay.
So that began, we need to do something about this.
Now they suddenly care.
All I could hear in my mind right now is the Fleetwood Mac song, "You Can Go Your Own Way."
Yes. So, you know,
For the
The
waste.
Great Stink of
the
1858.
Great Stink. You
Okay.
can look that up. And I say that because of a number of Scottish engineers began getting involved, and that kind of jumps over to the U.S. And we will talk about New York City.
Hold on, Alan, because sometimes you say something provocative and interesting, and then you just jump to. I want to just say, okay, the Thames River.
Yes.
I think we've seen pictures. Everybody knows there's this big river that goes. And it's not that big. It's a respectable river.
It's about the size of the Wolf River.
Okay,
It's not huge. It's
it's-
not the Mississippi.
It's
but
not the Mississippi.
yeah.
Well, why did it smell? I mean, why did it get so funky there?
Because London was one of the largest cities in the world, and basically the Thames was everyone's bathroom.
that bingo. That's what I was getting at.
Everything.
Why? What was going into the river to mess
Everything.
it up?
You
Okay.
name it, everything went into the river.
You didn't want to be downstream
You
from the
did
Thames.
not. So we jumped the pond at the same time period, you know, and let's go to New York City. And New York City between 1800 and 1880 was doing something impossible. It was doubling in size every decade.
Oh yeah, everybody was moving there. Yeah.
I mean, that's just insane. New York was this kind of cute little hamlet. It was a decent sized city, but, you know, 1810, it had doubled in size.
And it's all island,
1820,
so
it doubled in size
yeah.
again and again.
Because I mean, you would think an island, it's like they would say, well, there's only limited space, but then when you start going
And
vertical, then it
There's only so much water and only so much space.
right.
And this began we have got to control water. So a lot of these things had begun. Well, during this time period, about 1870, good old Memphis is becoming a little more important because, well, we're a port city.
We're right in the middle of the
We're
country.
kind of in the dead center. We're, as we later called ourselves, America's distribution center. And Memphis had a problem. Memphis
yeah.
had cholera and yellow fever. We had cholera in 1873, yellow fever in 1878 and 1879. And Memphis was not that big back in those days. And 1879 killed more than 10,000 people.
Yeah, it was pretty horrible.
So water, you know, we always love to say water is the enemy. At this point, water was really the enemy.
So we had
because-
water and we had mosquitoes spreading disease even
And
more,
we're a
right?
swamp.
Yeah.
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 So here we go.
Because
Of the newly formed National Board of Health out of New York sent a gentleman here named George A. Waring.
yeah.
That last name ought to sound familiar.
Waring Road.
There you go.
There you go.
To Memphis after the 1878 yellow fever epidemic. And the first thing he did, because he was mostly agricultural, how do you get water to the fields?
Yeah, they had a different situation. They were
But,
trying to
well, that's a great idea. But then when New York was trying to build their Central Park in 1857, you didn't want Central Park filling up like a fishbowl. So now you had to get the water out.
Yeah, there's a lot of water movement that, we just take for granted.
So that is why they sent him here. And he began looking at Memphis and began really devoting himself to how can we get Memphis to drain. And he actually came up with the idea of separating sewage from stormwater.
Now, that's important, right? Because stormwater is more or less, you would think, fairly clean.
Well,
Sewage is its own.
Well, it is and it isn't, but they are two different problems because your stormwater is going to be a surge, whereas your sewage is going to be a consistent issue.
I was going to say because it doesn't rain every day and it doesn't.
Exactly.
And you could even have a drought, but sewage is going to,
Sewage is
It's gonna
pretty
happen
much
every
a
day.
consistent dishwashing,
Yeah.
clothes washing, people cleaning type situation.
Yeah.
So what would happen is, of course, if you were using a single system, you'd have a big rainstorm come along, and of course it would wash everything out of the sewer, out into the streets where maybe you didn't want it.
Yeah.
So, so So this is where engineer Waring came in, and in Memphis, they really began to look at the invention of separating the systems and making sure that they were subterranean.
So we're literally ground zero of the sewer.
We are pretty close.
Okay, pretty cool. Well, with that tantalizing tease, everybody stay tuned. I can see people leaning in to their radio, just gripped by this here. So, all right, this is Tool Talk Radio. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back.
Tool Talk Radio with Joe and Alan.
And now for the finishing touch.
News Talk 98.9, the roar of Memphis.
And welcome back to Tool Talk Radio. I'm Joe Thorderson with Thor's Hammer, Carpentry and Wood Turning, here with my buddy Alan Gilbreth from darkoakmedia.com and our pal Max over there behind the glass. And if you're just tuning in, boy, Alan, I knew we were at the forefront of, I knew we were at the forefront back in the 1800s of being motivated to improve our sanitation system because of the yellow fever and everything. I didn't realize we were at the forefront of so much innovation when it came to modern sewer systems. But apparently, Mr. Waring was right here getting down to business, right? So, I mean,
there were just a few cities, Chicago being one of them, that was having to control water and kind of. Chicago was actually built on a massive wetlands.
Yeah.
That had to be, tamed, drained, and so that basically Chicago and Memphis have a lot in common in the fact that they were both shipping ports.
Yeah, it's all you do is you go north and you hit Chicago. Go north about 8 hours and you're in Chicago.
And you're in
literally
Chicago.
Straight up. Yeah.
But Chicago had a lot in common with us, as well as New York, because all three of these areas have a tremendous amount of water moving around it. But in the case of New York, a lot of people.
Yeah.
They had a lot of people. In the case of Memphis, the water we had around us wasn't that great because we're the top of the Delta. Most of the rivers around here, like St. John's Creek, the Wolf River, and that kind of stuff, are fairly muddy.
Yeah.
So the water is not, that beautiful Ozark Spring water or water from the eastern part of our state out of the Smoky Mountains where it's run through limestone and it's been filtered and wonderful. So Memphis was having kind of a rough time. So here comes engineer Waring, and the biggest thing he thought of was, okay, every time it rains here, it rains a lot. So we need to separate these systems, and that way the rainwater can just run off.
Okay.
Just put it out into the lakes and streams and rivers, and let's just get it out of it. Let's get that out of town.
Right.
And that made a huge difference. And then we get to talk about a guy named James Lee Jr. And he was looking for new business ideas. Okay. And there was some weird idea around 1880, 1890 that nobody hadn't really caught on yet, but it was called refrigeration.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
So I'm gonna tie us into everything. So a few weeks ago we talked about the aquifer, and James decided what he really needed was, instead of muddy river water that he had to go through all these steps to make usable, why not just drill a well?
There you go.
Anybody all over the Midwest or Texas or anything, you drill a well. And of March 18th, 1887 is an important day because that is when he hit what is now referred to as the Memphis Aquifer.
I mean, that's like striking gold, right? At that point, think of that.
Beautiful,
when they were pulling that clean water
filtered, absolutely gorgeous water. And Memphis actually was an ice capital for a little while.
Yeah.
Because you could make clean, clear ice straight from groundwater in Memphis, Tennessee.
I have to say, not to derail the conversation, but I feel like that some documentarian out there, somebody needs to make a movie out of this. Think of how game-changing that is for Memphis, that, you have all these issues, and then suddenly in the midst of all this turmoil, you discover that beneath your feet is some of the best water on the face of the earth. So, at your disposal.
Yep.
Pretty cool.
We're going to add one more tidbit to this, and then we're back into the sewers. And that is in 1890, Memphis actually built the first official pumping station. And it was right there at Court Square, downtown.
There you go.
And they just dropped a well down 400 feet, and they furnished the fire hydrants, the toilets, pumping stations, offices, police stations. Everybody now had clean drinking water, potable, usable water.
I mean, think of how revolutionary that is.
Now we're going to flip back to the sewers because we needed to take a little diversion because Engineer Waring is over here separating the waters. So he's got the rainwater and the runoffs going on into the streams and creeks and to the Mississippi River. Now we've got sewage to deal with. But now, once you've got them separated, it's easier to deal with one or the other. And Memphis became one of the first places to have, as a part of its civil engineering, if we're going to build a new neighborhood, we had to go in and build the rainwater collection system and the sewer system separate from each other.
Right.
So Memphis went up to the 1880s, 1890s as being one of the unhealthiest places to live in the country to now one of the best.
Boom. There you go.
There you go.
Just a quick question though, because the way you're describing this makes me think that back in history that people just got rid of their sewage and their rainwater and everything together. Is that how it used to be? They just all mixed up and
Well, yeah, horrifyingly.
Because I was thinking about it. It's like, oh, well, big deal. What's the difference? Well, to me, I'm just thinking what a big difference that would be. Like if you have a bathtub, well, I don't want to get too, I know people are eating their breakfast, but I'm just thinking, like you said, you have a manageable amount of sewage and you keep it separate. But, it doesn't take much sewage to contaminate a large amount of rainwater. So, yeah, keeping that separate seems very important. You really minimize the effect, I guess. So, but anyway, go ahead.
The big idea was, okay, well, we also have all these rivers and everything that we draw water from, we irrigate our fields from. We have wastewater that we want to contain. We don't need yellow fever coming back.
Yeah.
Because of also in Memphis is one of the original yellow fever research facilities. It's been closed for many, many years now, but it was there.
Yeah.
So a lot was going on in Memphis. And then we get to, now we have all this sewage. Now what do we do besides just sewage ponds?
Well,
We
I'm wondering
actually
how you
get
clean it
into-
and dispose of it, or what do you?
Well, they by 1893, if I get my dates right, we had bizarrely over 50 miles of sanitary and storm sewers.
Okay.
So now we've got waste collection, and Memphis is cleaning up drastically. So here we go. The sanitary systems are in place. Memphis is not plagued with yellow fever and cholera anymore. And cisterns and wells are now very common. And as a matter of fact, for a lot of our people that live anywhere in the, anywhere in the rural areas around Shelby County, you probably still have your own well.
Some people do, yeah. Yep.
And then came across the T.E. Maxson Wastewater Treatment Facility. And now we are actually treating the water, and we're trying to eliminate as much waste as possible.
Yeah, I wondered because to me that's where all the magic happens, right? The treatment facility, and then what does it do? It just I guess it breaks
Well,
it
you
down.
let the bacteria do their job.
There you go.
The
Okay.
basic idea of composting and reusing of massive, but when you really start getting to water, water is here. Water is either bountiful or in short supply. You know, being from the West, I'm from parts of the, I lived in parts of the country. You lived in San Diego.
Yeah.
Where water's in short supply.
Rains
so water
once
is
a year.
precious.
Yeah.
And you don't want to waste it. We live in Memphis, for those of you listening outside the area, and we get a fairly large amount of rain.
Yep.
You know, we're a temperate area that gets quite a bit of water, and the groundwater soaks in, but immediate groundwater is where, all the animals and plants and everything are, and it's not necessarily the cleanest water.
Yeah. But I'm just thinking how much cleaner the world became as these developments happen. I mean, because we're talking about think of the changes. You get a new sewer system for Chicago and New York and bigger cities, and it's spreading around, and just, I have to believe it's just, talk about a big lifestyle improvement, but the world must have smelled better.
Well, I'm fond of saying history did not smell good.
No.
Picture this: in 1880, we were just recognizing the problems.
Right.
But by 1900, just 20 years later, New York has got a health board. There's a national health board. Memphis has sewers. Everybody is developing systems for separating their wastewaters. And this became a de facto standard across the country and then the world in under 40 years.
Yeah. Pretty impressive.
That's, pretty amazing. Way to go, Memphis.
Yeah, no, it's cool. And it's just making me think of how many things have happened in Memphis that inspire the world. And it's funny, there's little fun facts. Like, they said that Memphis is mentioned more than any other city in music. It's named more than any, you think of the influence we've had with music and barbecue and just, we made our mark in the world.
A good, clean glass of water. Very, very important here.
Pretty cool. So you should have some civic pride, Memphians, on what we've been doing out here. So, that was pretty good. Very good suggestion, Alan. So, when we come back, we want to talk about the fact that it's your house and you can do what you want.
Tool Talk Radio with Joe and Alan.
The world is a question. This room is an answer. And the answer is no.
News Talk 98.9, The Roar of Memphis.
And welcome back to Tool Talk Radio. I'm Joe Thorderson with Thor's Hammer, Carpentry and Wood Turning, here with my buddy Alan Gilbreth from darkoakmedia.com and our pal Max over there behind the glass. And if you're just tuning in, I'm not recapping anything. We've covered too much. Just go back and listen to the podcast. As a matter of fact, it's probably a good time to remind people how to do that, Alan. There's many avenues, but
right now, among our most popular is you can pop over to Spotify, or you can go to YouTube and Tool Talk Radio, or you can go to tooltalkradio.com, and you can catch up on all of our past episodes. And
years of content.
And as I love to tell everybody at a show, you know what, Joe? You and I are amazingly good of background chatter.
No, it gets you in the right mood to do some home improvement.
Yeah, get some stuff done. Put us on, and just, while you're puttering around the workplace or the home, you can have us chatting in the background, encouraging you on.
And follow us on Facebook at Tool Talk Radio, and go to tooltalkradio.com for
give us a like and subscribe to the channels.
That's a good point. You always got to give us a like and 5-star reviews. It helps, gets the algorithms on our side. But in a minute, I want to. Well, actually, I think this is on point. With what I teased before the break, saying it's your house, do what you want. Well, within reason. But Max, off the air, you had a very random question that I actually think is on point and topical, but what were you talking with Alan about? So,
well, we were talking about sewage and plumbing and stuff like that, and then as I was just doing random Google searches, I came upon a high tank toilet.
I think we've all seen that. Basically, the water tank is up there. It's, 6 or 8 feet above. It's above your head,
yes.
And then there's a pipe going into the toilet. And it used to be you pull a chain and the water flushes down. Well, we were talking about the benefits. Well, there's, for one thing, it takes up more space, so that's a downside.
Right.
But Alan, you talked about the water pressure you get when you pull that high tank.
Yeah, it's dropping 6 feet.
Think of the momentum it's picking up. So would you use less water with a high tank toilet? Or in theory?
In theory, yes. You can actually, the old gag since the 60s was to put a brick in the upper tank of your toilet so that it didn't interfere with the flap, but it would displace water and you would now use that much less water every flush.
Right.
And your toilet would flush just fine.
Yeah.
So, we've got low flush toilets now. We've got great deal of efficiency. Modern plumbing generally is somewhere between 50 and 72 PSI in the line.
Yeah.
Which is why when something breaks, water sprays a lot. There's pretty good pressure on that line these days.
Yeah.
So, but we've had a lot of ideas in the bathroom and other areas for how to make things work under adverse conditions.
Okay.
So when water pressure was quite a bit lower, it took a while to fill up the tank. And
if you live on the 18th story in a New York something, you need some water pressure, so you put the tank up above. And
well, that way, it took 10 minutes to fill, but who cares?
Okay.
You went back in, you pulled the handle, and what you wanted to have go away went away.
There you go. All right, it was just an observation that Max made, and it led to a bigger discussion. But so before the break, shifting gears, I was saying, okay, this is what triggered the idea for me, you guys, is a lot of times when I go and I look at a job for somebody and they're asking for a quote or whatever, a lot of times what comes up in the conversation is, well, we also want to think about resale value. So, like, in other words, they're saying, okay, I'd like you to build this room addition for me. I'd like you to build this deck or something. And we're hoping, too, that, when we sell the house, it's going to be, it'll help, the appeal, and it'll boost the property value and all that. But also what I find in that conversation is a lot of people make their decisions like they may really want to do this one thing, but they're concerned with resale value because they're like, well, I don't want somebody to come in and think we're nuts. Why did we have that? And it got me thinking, because I told you when in my hometown of Glen Ellen, Illinois, back in the 80s, there was a family. They were sort of famous because of this. They put a slide in their house. You could go from the second floor to the first floor by sliding down into the whatever, that they were known as the slide house or whatever. Well, why can't you do that? I mean, it's your house. Why can't we sort of do what we want within, I don't know. You know what I mean? Are we limiting ourselves just because we're always thinking of what other people will think, or,
I can think of a house in Owensboro, Kentucky I worked on once upon a time, had an elevator in it.
Well, that's not such a bad thing. I mean,
they took out the stairs and put in an elevator.
Oh, no, I don't know about taking out the stairs.
It didn't take up any more or less. Well, there was an emergency elevator next to it, but the grand part of the house that was designed to be the stairwell had been replaced by an elevator. And that's, Dad couldn't get around anymore and was in a wheelchair, and now Dad could get around just fine. And I asked him, well, how much did that cost? And to be honest, it was about the same as renovating the kitchen.
Right.
And it's like, okay, well, that's kind of cool. There is a lot to be said for personalizing your house to what you want.
Right.
It's your house. You're going to live there for however long you're going to live there. I'm going to throw in my favorite cringy statement Joe always loves when I say admit your lifestyle.
Right. Yeah.
All right. Let's be honest, Joe. Let's get really into the minutia of this. Lifestyles have changed. Family dynamics have changed. There's now his, hers, theirs, and ours.
And they change every, like you said, 5 or 10 years.
Every 5 to 10 years, you are living a different life than you were living 5 to 10 years ago. Of what you want to do in the backyard. Having a pool for the kids was a priority. Now the kids haven't been out there in years, and there's a duck living in it. Move on.
Right.
Do not be afraid to get out of that last decade and move into the next one.
Well, it also got me thinking about sometimes we have features in our home that we maybe we don't use them to their full potential, or we just overlook the latent potentiality of those. Like I was just thinking, perfect example. I was talking to my wife about this. We have 2 picture windows because we have a pretty big backyard, and it's not unpleasant to look at. Actually, it's kind of nice to look at. So I said, this window, it's almost like, what if we treated this space almost like a picture window? Like a piece of art. In other words, maybe you frame the window differently, almost like you would just frame a painting. Maybe you downplay the window panes. Maybe you treat this as almost like it's a living work of art or something. Why can't you? Why can't you do that? Why not make it a centerpiece of your a focal point of the space or something?
I remember putting in a stained glass window in a bathroom.
There you go. Yeah, exactly. It's like we have these
That's what they
spaces
wanted.
that could just be ordinary, or they could be extraordinary, depending on the attention that you give to them or something. So,
Have you ever considered the idea of putting something in there that literally subverts expectations?
well, that's what I'm getting at, Mac. Yeah, why not? Why not do something that's different?
Well-
It's your space, man. You know.
Yeah, about 15 years ago, we did a lot of replacing garbage compactors.
What do you mean?
Well, that was kind of a thing back in the 70s and 80s.
Oh, nobody cares about
You
those
have a little
anymore.
garbage compactor, and it'd make a little square, and it would squeeze stuff, and they were
And they
actually
always
pretty horrible.
smelled.
They were always
Yeah.
pretty horrible.
Yeah.
And a lot of people were now taking them out in the 90s and in the 2000s, and we were putting in cabinets.
Yeah, now you have an extra cabinet.
Yeah,
space,
and
so-
we were putting in cabinets actually designed for like cookie sheets. You know, big, wide, flat. So times change, tastes change. And another thing is technology changes.
yeah, things become obsolete. So.
You know, we used to have spots in our home where telephones hung everywhere. We don't do that anymore.
No. Well, yeah. Well, that's our call to action for next week. If you've got any modern or updated things that are just your own signature touch to your home, send us some pictures. Let us see what we
Absolutely.
Then we'll talk about it. But we're not talking about it today because I hear the music. It's time to get out of here. Well, you've been listening to another wide-ranging episode of Tool Talk Radio. So on behalf of my buddy Alan Gilbreth and our pal Max over there behind the glass, I'm Joe Thorderson. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week.